Hey, this is lesson 1.3. How did Thomas Paine argue for independence from Britain? And the background of this document is really, really important. This is, like I said, from Common Sense, which was a document that was designed to try to convince people that the American Revolution was something that we should participate in, that we should rebel against the king, and we should try to be independent. So a little background. This was written in right around the year 1776, right at the beginning of the year. So it's a couple months shy of when, the Revolutionary War actually starts. And there's a huge debate in the early American colonies before they were states about whether we should continue to support Great Britain or whether we should rebel. People that thought things were pretty good under the king and we should continue being part of Great Britain, or we should rebel and try to create our own country. And this divided communities, this divided sometimes even families where, one or two members of the family would be supporting of the king and trying to remain loyal to Great Britain, called loyalists, or if we should rebel and try to get our independence. Those people were called patriots. So imagine being in a family where, one or two brothers were very much loyalist, and maybe the parent or maybe a younger brother or sister were very much patriots. That it could divide individual families into different pieces, and it can get real ugly real fast. So that's kind of the stage that is set for this document, where there's lots of people in the middle too, where some people didn't want to get involved, or some people, weren't quite sure. They didn't want to pick sides. So this document was trying to convince people to abandon Great Britain and become patriots and fight against the king for a better future. So if you look at your learning intention and your success criteria today, it's looking at, we're learning how to analyze and interpret primary source documents so that we can better understand how this Thomas Paine guy argued for independence. Why should we listen to him, and why should we, what does he have to say? And then what you should be able to do after you're done with this lesson is be able to analyze what he had to say and kind of make sense of it. Did he have a good point, or is he just inciting war and trying to cause drama at the time period? So, like the last lesson, there's lots of vocabulary words. This is written in 1700s language, which is very different than the language we speak today, even though it's all English. It's a different way of speaking English. So make sure you review the vocabulary. I'll try to give you some help along the way, but it would be beneficial if you looked at that. So again, this is 1776, Thomas Paine, Common Sense, part of it anyway. So, but there's another and great distinction or difference for which no truly natural or religious reason can be assigned. The distinction of men into kings and subjects. So the people that rule and the people that get stuck with whatever the rulers have to say. Male and female are the distinctions of nature. Good and bad, the distinctions of heaven. But how a race of men came into the world so exalted or respected above the rest and distinguished like some new species is worth inquiring or looking into, and whether they are the means of happiness or of misery to mankind. So he's arguing here, let's look at what makes kings and what makes subjects, and why one is one and one is the other. And then he compares that to like the difference between men and women being, a natural difference, or good and evil, which is, religiously speaking, something that God might determine. So the next paragraph. I have heard it asserted or claimed by some that America has flourished or done really, really well under her former connection with Great Britain. The same connection is necessary towards her future happiness. Basically, it's worked for 100 or 200 or 300 years. Let's keep it going because we've been doing well. And will always have the same effect. Nothing could be more fallacious or false than this kind of argument. We may as well assert or claim that because a child has thrived upon milk, that it is never to have meat, or that the first 20 years of somebody's life is to become precedent or the example for the next 20. But even this is admitting more than is true, for I answer roundly with excitement that America would have flourished as much, and probably much more, had no European power taken any notice of her. So he uses the example of like a little baby needing milk, and saying that the kid never needs meat because he survived on milk for the first year of his life. Or, first 20 years of your life, as you grow and become, is going to be the example and the way you're, and he's saying that's just a bunch of bull. Can't compare that to America. Sooner or later, you have to realize that we probably would have been better if we hadn't been connected with Great Britain. Certainly going forward will be better. And he has a couple of arguments for that we'll get into. Next paragraph. I challenge the warmest advocate for reconciliation, so the person, to show a single advantage that this continent can reap by being connected with Great Britain. He's saying, give me one example of how we're going to be better going forward being connected to Great Britain. I repeat this challenge. Not a single advantage is derived or seen. Our corn will fetch its price in any market in Europe. We can sell our stuff anywhere. And our imported goods, the stuff that we're buying from other countries, we got to pay for them anyway. It doesn't really matter where we come from. But the injuries and the disadvantages which we sustain by that connection, the damage of being connected with Great Britain, are without number. And our duty to mankind is large, as well to ourselves. Instruct us to renounce the allegiance, because any submission to or dependence on Great Britain tends directly to involve this continent in European wars and quarrels or fights, and sets us at variance or at odds with nations who would otherwise seek our friendship, and against whom we have neither angered nor complaint. So basically he's saying, the only thing we get out of this connection with Great Britain is we get involved with a whole bunch of wars that we have to send soldiers to help fight in, and it's costing us money. That's really the only thing we're getting out of this connection. So why bother having this connection? Next paragraph. But where says some is the King of America? I'll tell you, friend, he reigns above, and does not, make havoc of mankind like the royal brute of Britain. It's a really nice way of calling the king a monster. Yet, that we may not appear to be defective, even in earthly honors, let a day be solemnly set apart for proclaiming the charter. Let it be brought forth, played on the divine law, the word of God. Let a crown be placed thereon, by which the world may know that so far as we approve as monarchy, that in America law is king. For as in absolute governments the king is law, so in free countries the law ought to be king, and there ought to be no other. So basically we don't need a king in the United States. We don't need a king in this new country that we're going to create. Our king is going to be the law, and everyone is going to be subjected to it, even our leaders. Right? The next part that you're going to do is there are 5 questions that ask you to analyze the document, what we just went through. And then 2 reflection questions by the end of the hour. So imagine, before I end, imagine that you are sitting in 1776 and your family members have chosen sides. Some want to stay loyal to the King of England. Others want to be patriots and fight back against that king, and you're still undecided. What reasons would this document give you, or what reasons did this document give you to choose being a patriot over a loyalist? And are they good arguments? If you lived at this time and read this, or, somebody that read this, would this be something that you'd actually take into consideration? Or would you, say, no, this guy is just full of garbage? Because this is just one perspective on the issue. There's lots of people that said we should remain connected with Great Britain, and they had their reasons as well. So look at the wording of this and try to figure out if you lived at the time and read this, or more likely somebody read it to you, would this be something you believed? Would this be something that get you energized to take up, the fight against Great Britain? What kind of drama would this cause in your own household? All right. Good luck.